Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Extra. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and this is something that wasn't planned when I set out the schedule last week because, as I mentioned before on another podcast I did with Craig Telfer, I thought the result of the match was preordained. And, well, I don't think we've ever before got a Celtic or Old Firm fan on the show to bask in the glory of them winning a trophy because, slow clap. Well done. However, the result was not preordained. Aberdeen did walk away with the Scottish Cup trophy after a dramatic penalty shootout victory over Celtic. And I thought, can't just leave it at just the one podcast with myself and Telfer, two non-Aberdeen fans, talking about it, especially when we have an Aberdeen fan as part of the Terrace team. So, welcome onto the show, a jubilant Thom Watt. Tom, have you come down from Clydedown yet?
No. I mean, my voice is still a little croaky, to be honest. I would say I'm still maybe even like 10, 15% hungover. But it's been one of the best weekends of my life. I think nobody was wrong when they wrote us off. Nobody was, there's been a lot of like, oh, well, you shouldn't have. No, people were absolutely right. Nobody was feeling confident at all. Nobody was feeling like there was any sense of optimism, weirdly, until the day. And then you have a couple of pints, and then you're thinking, oh, he's changed the system. He's gone and changed the system. Mad bastard. For the first time this season, he's actually trying to do something different and had to try something different. He's still like pretty confident, which way it's going to go. And there were still lots of people early doors like just don't make it embarrassing. But it wasn't, and they dug in. And then when it went to penalties, I was this weird sense of calm of like, our goalie's better than theirs. Our goalie's better at penalties than theirs.
I don't know if you saw or heard the podcast I did with Telfer about it, but that's what I said. I said at the outset of the penalties, I was fairly confident, not hugely because it's still Celtic in a final, but I was fairly confident.
And Aberdeen in a final.
Anybody against the Old Firm in a final in Scotland. But yeah, I just kind of thought they've got the better keeper, especially after Schmeichel's howler for the equaliser. I just thought he'll be in. One, I think he's a better goalie, and two, he'll just be in a better frame of mind going into these.
And it was just when the first penalty went in and McGregor missed his first penalty, there was just a sense like last season when we took them to penalties in the semi-final, there was a sense of like maybe, but it felt, or certainly I felt on watching the game, that just like waiting for the thing to go wrong, and the best bit about it was Joe Hart missing his penalty to win it. Like, but still like being tense about what might go wrong, rather than Graham Shinnie. Like three, all four of them were good penalties, but three of them were unsavable penalties, and there's just a level of belief, and Maida barely got his over the line. It just felt like there was different levels of belief and different levels of energy going into the penalties. That this is the chance, we'll take it. Still can't quite believe it. Still feeling a little like that wasn't what was meant to happen, and just trying not to be too smug about it, but failing largely.
So I should probably find out what you actually did in the weekend. How was your? Let's set out what your movements were across like Friday after work into Monday.
Okay, so Friday after there were three of my pals came down from Aberdeen in particular, who I'd been going to football with for nearly coming on 30 years. And so they were. Some of them were staying with me. Some of them were staying. Weren't coming down until the Saturday. So a relatively quiet Friday, so that we could be up and ready and at the church on the hill for 10 o'clock. We weren't allowed to buy any booze until 11. So I had a hearty breakfast and stood around the bar about 20 to 11 waiting. I'm just thinking, do I want water?
Yeah, I love the idea of that's you guys thinking like you're almost treating it like you're going to see like your favourite musician at a festival or something, and you're just getting down there early to get the best possible spot. But it's not actually to see anybody. It's not even to see your own team. It's just to get pints.
Just to get pints, get pints and get a seat. Because we're settling in for the long run. We're gonna.
How many pints did you buy with that first round? How many each?
We got 4 each.
Tremendous. Good, I like it. I would have probably kept it in 3, but no, good.
By the second round, it was like 45 minutes queue to get in, and they didn't open up the wee bar at the front until maybe like 1. My timings on this is going to be a bit.
That's fine.
But yeah,
game started at 3, Tom.
Game started at 3. Between about so pints were had, fun was had. John McMaster turned up to say hello, and Stevie Tosh was in Church on the Hill, and so pints were had. Optimism levels were slightly growing, even though we were kind of being quite fatalistic about just. And then the team comes in because all of the group chats all the way through the week is like we just can't do what we've. Even the 2-2 draw at Parkhead, we could easily have been 3-0 down. Before 4-0 down, before coming back and making a fist of it and giving them a bit of a fright. Like any time we've tried to go toe to toe with Celtic this season, they've absolutely killed us. Anytime, generally, anyone's tried to go toe to toe with Celtic this season, they absolutely kill us. Where they've had problems with this season is when teams have just refused to try and get them to do something different, and nobody was expecting. All of the fans were saying that Dylan's never tried anything different. But the only way you can see this working is if we go, however you want to call it, 3 at the back, 5 at the back.
5 at the back.
A back 10, back 9, however it wants to be fit. But effectively playing with, trying to crowd the edge of the box and push out in midfield and just live off scraps up front. So when that was announced, the only real surprise was that Jack Milne was in terms of personnel, but the system was totally new. That felt quite positive. Weirdly, not going from not going down home, not being like, yes, we've given them all the lots of options to worry about, but being like, well, no, we're actually going to try and be really pragmatic about this and treat it like. We'll stop them scoring for as long as possible and then see what happens from there. And I've seen some criticism of people being like, "Oh, Aberdeen weren't actually that good in the final." And I think they were. I think that, in the first half, ceded a lot of possession, probably more than would have liked, and didn't offer anything going forward.
Yeah, I think when you say you don't play well, like you played well enough in the sense that. Or you played well in the sense that the game plan defensively, and that's the thing. It's about both. It's not just about attacking. The football's about both sides of the game. And defensively, you played brilliantly well in the first half. I think the biggest problem was that you didn't really get anything out of your front two for the first hour of the game. And had you done, it probably would have been praised more for the performance because you would have carried more of a threat on the counter. You also would have, had Celtic, had the kind of play higher up the pitch, give the defence a bit more of a rest. But even there's still a bit of a to and fro in there, because if you did do that, the game would have been stretched a bit quicker and Celtic got a bit more joy and not kind of... You kind of, as I said to Telfer, you kind of rope-a-doped Celtic. And not in a sense that they punched themselves out, but just you killed the game, basically. Yeah. And so they just never really seemed to be able to lift themselves back up to what they maybe thought going into it.
And I think, don't get me wrong, I probably should have started with this, that to beat Celtic in a final, a number of things need to happen. Most of, if not all of the following needs to happen. Your keeper needs to make at least one really, really good save. You need to get lucky because they're going to get chances even when they play particularly badly. They need to not be on it. Their subs that come on need to be worse than the players that are going off. Their plan B needs to not work. and a number of their high-profile players need to make mistakes. And even then, you're probably still, you're probably still going to lose. But
even then, you only win the game on penalties.
Yeah, exactly. You need all of those things to happen, plus your team to be really, really good with whatever it is that they set out to do. And that's what happened. We can't. I'm not going to pretend that we played some like amazing free-flowing football, or even that the goal to get back into the game was like a particularly brilliant, well-worked. Although it had it was an own goal, and it was a terrible own goal to concede from Kasper Schmeichel. I have no idea. Like, if you just, it's not like it's even on target. Just leave it, and you're probably, you've got defenders in there that can probably deal with it better than you can. But that did come from a couple of flourishes going forward, and a couple of moments of what it, and actually the build up to that goal was probably the most sustained period of pressure, where Pape had a decent bit of play and build up, and he did make a difference when he came on. I still think his biggest strength in a way is making opposition look worse. Rather, he's like a sort of cheat card of like minus 10 points, because defenders don't really know what to do with him. Like, his touch is not great, but he's really strong. He's pretty quick. He can move diagonally quite slowly, but he can't. His big acceleration is quite good. So defenders don't really know what to do with him. They don't really know whether to stand off him, or if they hit him, he can keep going. So he did make a difference, and Shane Morris made a difference. So yeah, bit fortunate to get back into it, but certainly the second half and the substitutions, when, like I say, it was not entirely rope-a-dope, but when Celtic didn't have an awful lot of answers, and for all the possession that they had, and for all the 20 shots that they took, I think 4 were on target, 3 were on target, and there wasn't an awful lot of incisive football in there. So you kind of take what you can get, and when you have half a chance, or they gift you something, then you seize on it.
So you still go in a goal down at half time. What was your view of the goal? What were you thinking at that point? Was it just a case of, oh well, that we lasted a luxurious 40 minutes? That's a nice day out.
I'm desperately trying to get somebody to tell me that there was an outrageous reason it should have been disallowed. At that point, still looking for some sort of justification for it to be been ruled out. To be honest, not terrible. Like, the biggest thing was not to concede again, because that's been the problem for the last, for the second half of the season. For most of the second half of the season, is when we've been good, we've looked pretty good. When we've looked bad, we look like we could concede 3 goals in 10 minutes, no problem. So kind of getting in just 1-0 down, and it still being a relatively tight game, wasn't the worst feeling in the world. Just that we're going to have to be a bit more proactive than we were in the first half, and we're going to have to change it at some point, because there were, particularly Keskinen is not a second striker. Keskinen and Nisbet didn't have an awful lot to work with at all, but we did need to make some changes there, but not completely disappointed by it only being 1-0, and the fact that it was just a bit of a unfortunate goal to concede as well.
Belief must have started building when you got to around about the 60-odd minute mark. The subs had been made. There was a little bit more attacking thrust to the team. The score's still 1-0 as well, and the longer it goes 1-0, you're thinking, right, we've got a chance, because you only need one chance in football.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was, the longer it went, the longer it stayed at 1-0, the longer it stayed that they didn't, because if Celtic had scored 2, they would have scored 4. And the longer we kind of kept focused, kept the shape, they kept going side to side and trying to get in behind, which just didn't make an awful lot of sense. It felt very much like, it felt very much like they hadn't watched some of the goals that we had been conceding. They hadn't watched, what Dundee United did for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and on the last game of the season, where they just shelled balls into the box, and we really struggled with that, because it just changed the dynamic of the game, changed what we were trying to. We were very good concentrating with the ball in front of us, but then when they started changing the game, we just didn't know what to do with that. So hanging in there, and with there being a couple of little flourishes, there being a couple of moments where Morris in particular was given a bit of space to run and could get going with, and Papi Keita's credit, I think, changed the dynamic as well, because he was more physical. Like there were a couple of moments that he could take the ball and do something with it rather than immediately was getting the Nisbet and Keskinen being a little more slight and wanting to run onto things rather than taking the ball with their back to the goal. So there was a bit more optimism. There was a bit of and Celtic were starting to make like little mistakes. It was just the odd passes that were going astray. There were the odd like crossfield ball that wasn't finding somebody. The play that was like maybe 3 or 4 players that were interconnecting in the first half just wasn't really happening, and they didn't really seem to know whether they wanted to raise the tempo and really go for it, or they were waiting for us to do something. So there's just, I wouldn't say optimism. That would be overstating it a wee bit. But just a feeling like the longer we stay in this, there will be a chance at some point.
And you get the chance. Morris's, not even a chance really. Morris's cross is diverted in his own net by Kasper Schmeichel. If you can describe what was how you reacted, what was going through your head, everything around you at that point.
Absolute jubilation, because it's not one where like there were a couple of chances later on. There was especially the half chances, the one for Dante Polvara, where you can see the build up, you can see that somebody's touched the ball on, and you can see that there's a chance, so you get enough time for your brain to go, oh my god, there's a chance here. Maybe we're going to take. No, it's not going to. That was very much like, oh, nice. Morris has got to the byline and he's put the ball in, but no, there's nobody's getting to that. And then the sort of like, what's just happening? Like your body's just like, it's gone in, it's in. We've got a goal, we're back in it. It's 1-1. But like this sort of disbelief of like, what the fuck just happened there? There's like this glitch that just went from, a very safe looking ball that like just fall on the ball, just or leave it to one of the 2 defenders that's going to get in ahead of like Nicky Devlin at the back post. There's still like three players, 3 defensive players in there. So just kind of like disbelief that somehow it's ended up in the back of the net. And I can't like overstate it and say I felt like it that at the time, but you watch the replays and you can see like Liam Scales and Cameron Carter-Vickers just being like, for fuck's sake. There's only like a matter of minutes left in this, and we've thrown an awful lot at it. And that must have been incredibly deflating, because it wasn't just that, that obviously we were back into the game, but for the final 10 minutes, not like the momentum swung hugely back it, but we had a couple of chances. We forced a couple of set pieces. Great fun watching Shaden Morris and Jeffrey Schlupp foot race. I would watch that. I'd probably pay money just to watch that again when he's got like 5 or 6 yards on him. So it just felt at that point like, oh, they're not invincible. They don't know what to do with this either. Maybe. And look, we're back even. So like, if we can just hold on to this, we'll see how far we get.
So how were your nerves in extra time?
Oh, fucking awful. Absolutely frayed. Just like, I think I probably watched as much of the second half of extra time just looking at the clock, just like willing the clock down rather than actually watching what was happening on the pitch. Just like, I've never want to wish my life away, but oh man, what I'd give for this to just be like, jump forward 10 minutes, and yeah, frayed, I think is the right word. And because I've seen that film before, I've seen the amount of, I've seen us losing penalties last season and Tom Roberts scoring the dying minutes and us have our moment, and they had their moment, and Mitov made a great save. But but just at that point, you're kind of like willing it to get to penalties because of it. When the thought entered my head that we could take it to penalties, I don't even think let's not even meet up. Whoever's been, whoever's been working on the penalties behind the scenes at Aberdeen this season's done a really good job because I think Mitov saved 2 and Doohan certainly saved 1, and in a shootout, would have taken that any day of the week, even though I wasn't entirely sure who was on the pitch that had ever taken a penalty before.
So when Mitov saves the second penalty, which confirms it, did you wait for VAR like your own goalkeeper,
no.
or were you waiting?
No, hugged my friends, couldn't quite believe, a mixture of things, Celtic fans and a couple of Hibs fans that I know that I wanted to just send them a nice little message reminding them, because it's not enough to win, others must lose. Hug my friends, hug strangers, a sort of sense of disbelief that's all happened. My brother's trying to call. He lives in the US and he was watching it, not really sure what to do, where to go, what to who to turn to, what to feel, because it's like I said, I've been going to the football with that group of friends for nearly 30 years, and I don't care what anybody else says, but for clubs that aren't Rangers or Celtic, the clubs that don't win, it means more. It does mean more. Of course it means more. It's been 10 years since we last won a trophy, and in the 10 years since we last won a trophy, there's a bunch of people that we used to go to football with that are no longer with us anymore, or the friends have had kids that are now of an age that understand what it all means. So much has changed in the times that you have that. So when it happens, you almost there's lots of belief that maybe it's not going to happen again for in your lifetime. When it happens again, you don't really know where to go with it. And I'm not exaggerating it when I was like, it was one of the best days of my life. Just out with your friends, out with strangers. I left the stadium and immediately Chris Harvey, who used to work with at STV, was a huge hug from him. Folk that I haven't seen in 15, 20 years that were at that game and all in the moment at the same time. Yeah, just inexplicable excitement, not knowing quite where to turn, look, who was going to get slagged off first, who was going to get gloated over first, whether or to just be in the moment with my friends who were all around me. Amazing.
What time did you leave Hampden?
Good question. We weren't staying to the very last, but it was certainly amongst the first large group that started leaving. I couldn't tell you exactly, but details for the rest of the next 36 hours are a little sketchy.
Well, for what can you remember? What was the post-match celebrations? Where did you go?
So we went down to went to the Bell Jar and had a couple of pints. Then went into the West End. Ended up went to play mini golf. Then went to a karaoke bar. And then we were in town until.
Mini golf, an unusual choice after a cup final victory.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people that were like, "Oh, we're going to go and play. We're going to go play mini golf." We were like, "Ah, cool. We'll come. We'll do that. We'll come do that." And then so at home until I don't know TBC, and then a few hours later was up and on the train up north and went to the. I didn't know there was that many people that lived in the northeast in one place. Yeah.
How was the parade?
Just celebratory. Just there was one for the League Cup in a decade ago, 2014, yeah. And
2014 was held after Christmas.
And that was great, but that was very much like the bus going by and everyone waving and everyone feeling quite good about it. This was just swarms of people everywhere. There was people absolutely everywhere, and and most folk hadn't come down from the night before. And and I've never seen so many people in Aberdeen at once. Obviously, I've never seen that many. I mean, like outside of, I don't know, Leeds Music Festival. I don't know. I can't think of a place that I've been where I've seen that many people in one place for one thing, and just everybody in the same space and everyone in the same headspace, and just a overwhelming feeling of community and a job well done.
I think that'll do us. Thom, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to everybody for listening and your continued support of the podcast. We will talk to you again soon. Goodbye.